So to all those named in these stories, it's settle in, dear listeners, and welcome back to Morbid Whispers, House of Dreams. Quick but terrifying by Gingerhead 80. First, I want to apologize if everything is not clear. My English isn't perfect. To give you some context, my parents had a second house since I was 10 years old. It was only 1 hour away from our principal house, but it allowed us to go to the beach almost every weekend. You also need to know that the second house was in a small but very touristic town. To make it clear, most of the people around me who could afford it, yes, because prices are very high there, had a place there. The fact that prices were that high made me and my parents think that there was no real kind of danger in the town, because there was only fortunate vacationers. We more thought about it like a town-sized summer camp than a real town. And that's why my parents let me come and go in the city with no king of surveillance. To sum up, I thought about the town like a safe place where I had nothing to fear. Sorry about the very long context, but I think it's important to understand why a girl was in the situation I'm going to describe and why I was this surprised. One evening, I agreed with my girlfriend to eat in a restaurant. The town is kind of cut in half by the main street where you can find all the restaurants and the shops. As a pedestrian, my house was only 10 minutes away from the main street, so me and my girlfriend agreed to meet halfway there. I walked alone in the night for like 1 minute. I was very uncomfortable because even though it's a very nice city at day, it can be very scary at night. Nearby my house there was two streets merging in one, and in the middle of the two streets there was a very tiny parking for like 7 cars max. So I was 10 meters away from the parking, coming from one of the two little streets when I saw a car with two people in it. They were coming forwards towards me. It was kind of slow, but nothing surprising in a tiny neighborhood. When it got closer, it slowed even more, and I could see two guys in it. At this point, I was already scared because a girl facing two guys in a car at night is the kind of situation that can become a disaster. I decided to ignore them, and I walked by without even looking at them. Finally, the car was behind me. I was very scared, and I started to walk faster for like 10 meters when I heard a car coming from the second little street. I can't explain why, but I was terrified by the two guys I saw before, so I left the street and went on the parking. There was like 3 cars, including a big white van, which, by the way, is owned by a neighbor of mine, so I could trust it. I went in front of the van so I could see through the windshield what was happening. Then I saw the car, the one that slowed when passing me by. I couldn't even think. I immediately laid down and rolled under the van. The car continued for like 5 meters and stopped. One of the guys left the car and walked a few minutes around the parking. I could only see his shoes coming and going around me. I thought he'll find me 100 times because it was so hard to deal with my breath and all the fear. Then, after what I call an eternity, we got back in the car and they left. I stayed there for 20 minutes after they left. I was so terrified that maybe they could see me getting out of my hiding place. Then I finally left and found my girlfriend. She was searching for me because I was very late. I explained everything to her, but we decided to do nothing because I couldn't see the number plates, so I had nothing to tell the police. I hope you guys found that story interesting. I'm still kind of traumatized from it. Every time I think of it, I try to make myself think that they were looking for an address, and that's why they slowed and everything. Now I always meet my girlfriend at the place before we go to the main street. Hope you liked it and didn't find it too long. Never walk by yourself at night and always trust your instincts. Who Visited My House by Booze Daddy ILY. My heart pounded and tears streamed down my cheeks. My hands were violently shaking as I tried to text my friend. I desperately needed a place to spend the night. There was no way I could sleep in my house for one more night, but I need to backtrack a little bit. Brother, Casey Portillo, went missing years ago. Despite the police investigations, search parties, and infinity efforts to find his whereabouts, but we found nothing. As time went on, no clues were found, and updates from the police slowly faded. After years of the pain his disappearance caused, we figured out how to manage. As hard as it was for our friends and family, we were able to move on. I never really believed in paranormal experiences until now. One rainy day, I was sitting on my couch, watching a movie, when all of a sudden I hear a knocking on the door. I groan as I turn off the TV. I get up and walk over to the door. When I opened it, I was shocked to see none other than Casey Portillo. He looked the same as he did the day he vanished. He greeted me as he normally would and stepped inside. He tossed his old work boots to the side. It always pissed me off when he did so. He's had those boots since his sophomore year, and he should have been a college junior by now. Dirt from the bottom of his boots covered my brand new floors. Part of me wanted to get mad at him for not wiping his feet, but I was far too stunned at his return to even think about scolding him. I tried to speak, but no words came out. I felt my heart beat faster, and my breathing intensified. He just looked at me weird and walked into the kitchen. He made himself a cheese quesadilla, which was the first red flag. My brother was lactose intolerant, and ever since he left, I had stopped buying dairy-free products. I was never a fan of lactose-free foods, but we had no other choice. It was also much cheaper to just buy the dairy-free products than to buy that and the normal ones. I didn't know if he hadn't realized the label didn't say dairy-free or what. But a chill went down my spine when I saw him eat it. He ate every last crumb, not even questioning a single thing. Words would not come out of my mouth. I wanted to question him so bad, but the words seemed to fail me for the first time. Finally, I was able to get, "I'm gonna go lay down," out of my mouth. I hurried to my bedroom and break down in tears. I locked my door before I fall to the ground. My whole body was shaking in terror. I tried to grab my phone and call my friend, but no answer. More and more tears fall down my cheeks. I was finding it hard to breathe. You would think I'd be happy to see him again, but I wasn't. I just knew that couldn't be him, so I came up with a plan to find out what truly happened. I wiped my tears and take deep breaths. I was able to calm down enough to begin my plan's execution. I looked through my large closet. I settled on a skin-tight white mini dress. I paired it with heels and jewelry. I curled my long, wavy brown hair and did my makeup. I grabbed a black bag and packed everything I would need. I yelled out, "I'm going out. I'll be back later." I jumped into my car and sped to an old battlefield. It was late at night, around 12:47. I started walking till I found a large oak tree with a cross carved into it. I checked to make sure Casey Portillo's body was still there. The Man on the Farm by Soongegotmoves. I was 17 when this story happened 3 years ago now. I was working in an old pizza shop right on the edge of my town. For context, the town I was in is an affluent, suburban town surrounded by a bypass which loops around the town. Around my town is some farmland and main roads, where all of the blue-collar workers moved to after the town was gentrified 10 to 15 years back. The pizza shop was around for 20 years and was very catered to by these same blue-collar workers. It's around 9 p.m. and a call comes in for 2 pizzas and a 2-liter of soda. I'm the only driver in, so I have to take the delivery out. It's about a 10-minute drive to get to the location. There I have to drive up a long gravel driveway that took 5 minutes to get up. The car really couldn't handle the gravel and how rough it was. Arriving at the place, I see a nice house and two barns plotted across the land, with wheat 5 to 6 feet tall surrounding the whole property. I've always been really anxious around farms because of how creepy I think they are. Being at this place when I felt truly alone really started to make my anxiety flare. I decided to call the number on the house because I have no idea where this guy wants me to go and drop off his food. After about 5 minutes of absolute silence, the man picks up. He had a very deep and raspy voice, like he's been a career smoker, which didn't do anything to help me feel better. I was told to meet him at his truck at the far barn on his property. I am now properly shitting myself as my mind races of all the worst possible things that could happen to me. I pull myself together and muster further into this guy's property. I see the man's truck as I round one of those cylinder storage units where I see his F-150 and him inside. Instead of getting out, I call him and ask him how we should do the transaction. In that same deep voice, he instructs me to get out of my car and put all of the food onto his truck bed. Since he paid with his credit card already, I thought this would have been over in 10 seconds. I do what he tells me to do and walk over to the passenger window so that he can sign his receipt. The man looks to be around in his mid-40s, heavy set, with a scraggly black beard and a trucker hat. I'm a pretty skinny guy, so with my mind already racing on being kidnapped or murdered, I really don't feel safe around this guy. I ask him if he has a pen on him, because I forgot to bring one. I was pretty bad at my job, and he did not have any cash on him. He stares at me with these cold eyes and points into the back of his truck, saying to me, "You ask me for a tip, I'm going to be sticking this tip down your fucking throat." Where he has a double-barreled shotgun just in the back of his car. I'm frozen in fear as I'm registering that this man has just threatened to kill me. Not only that, but this is the second time this has happened this shift. Yeah, I kid you fucking not. The first time was because I messed up the address for a house, and a man in his 60s wearing a cowboy hat and a fucking WWE belt comes outside and he says he has the right to shoot trespassers when I was just trying to see if I was at the right house. The only thing I can muster out is, okay. And I get back into my car and I get the fuck off that farm. I was going so fast that I fucked up my car from the bouncing around on that gravel path. I go 80 all the way back to the pizza parlor where I tell my coworkers what happened. None of my coworkers took me seriously and just thought I was playing this up for a joke. I go home and forget about it pretty quickly. But a year later, I'm working the lunch shift and the same man calls in and orders a pizza. Now at this point, I'm refusing to take this order. But this was during COVID, and the place was on its last legs already, so management forced me into going anyway. It was only 1 or 2 p.m. on a Sunday, so at least my fear of the dark would be covered. I get there and the man is waiting for me at his actual house. He recognized me, and out of all things, started to apologize to me for what he said. He was excusing it, saying that he just started going through a divorce and was struggling with his emotions. I just wanted the whole thing to be over with, and he gave me $60 for what happened. Still, to the man on the farm, I hope we never meet again. Stalked by an ex-coworker. Equivalent C 47. I got a new job, and at my job, there was this guy who used to watch me whenever he was around. We didn't work together, but we worked in the same department. We did sometimes work together, but it was rarely. All of the weird stuff started a few months after I started a new job and moved within walking distance to my new job. One October night, I was walking home when a tall man wearing a hoodie came suddenly out of some bushes as I was walking by. I found this bizarre, so before I entered my apartment, I looked back and saw him standing by some trees watching me. When he realized I saw him, he jumped behind the trees to hide. I told my boyfriend, and he thought it was a drug dealer. Anyway, I started walking through a different trail. When a month later, I saw the same man. This time, he was crouching by the trailer of some parking lot. He got up and started walking away from me, but kept watching me. After a week, he showed up again, but this time I was halfway to my home and he came out of hiding behind the trailer and started walking towards me. I beelined it from my apartment's door and ran inside. This time he knew that I lived in which apartment, as the previous times I would walk around to the front door so that he wouldn't know which apartment I was in. He seemed like he was trying to figure out where I lived, as he could have attacked me multiple times. It doesn't end there. I got laid off and got a new job. After 3 weeks of working there, I was getting on the bus when this guy who looked familiar to the guy in the parking lot was watching me get on. I quickly hurried to the back of the bus. When we got to my stop, he pulled the string and got off. I got off as well, but then decided to wait for this guy to keep walking, but unfortunately he slowed down his pace, seemingly waiting for me to pass him. I ended up walking behind him until we got to some lights and he wouldn't move. I decided to walk fast and hide from him in case he was looking for my new job's location. During the time I worked there, I saw my ex-coworker on the train when I was heading back from my interview. He saw me going in the same direction as him and started running. He ran pretty slowly, like he had a limp or something. It was kind of strange, but anyway. I also saw him hanging out at the mall when I was there with my mom, but this doesn't really matter as it's a popular place. Anyway, I got laid off from this job due to COVID and had a month where I did not go outside much. After a month, I got a new job within walking distance. After 1 week, I was leaving work when there was a guy just watching me again, and he looked similar to the previous guy watching me when I was walking home. So I ran away and got to some lights and didn't see him. For a month and a bit, I didn't see anyone. One night, it was relatively warm. I was closing close to midnight and was walking home when I saw a white car parked behind some store, seemingly out of view of any security cameras. I was suspicious of it as it had its headlights off and it seemed like someone was sitting in there. I'm walking by it and kept looking over my shoulder at it until I decided it was probably safe. Anyway, not a second goes by and I get this feeling I should look behind me. I look and I see my ex-coworker walking towards me. I start running as fast as I could and the adrenaline helped me get away. I didn't look back until I cleared some space between us and I didn't see him. Luckily, there were some men waiting for the bus at the end of the road, so I wasn't too worried he'd come running for me as I'd seen him running. So a month goes by and I didn't see him, but I assumed he was on vacation, as he showed up approximately a month later. Anyway, one night in early May, I was walking over to a grocery store to pick up some groceries I really needed after work as it was only 9 p.m. So as I'm walking there, some guy wearing a hoodie comes up from behind me and starts walking to the bus terminal. But I guess he overheard my conversation to my boyfriend as I was telling my boyfriend that I was going to the grocery store to pick up some stuff and walking home. So I get to the grocery store and get my stuff. When I'm about to start walking home, I see some old-looking guy dressed like a teenager standing outside the grocery store. He was wearing the same clothes as the guy I saw earlier, and he was watching me and trying to get close to me. I started telling my boyfriend to get me an Uber instead, and I walked over to some bags of fertilizer to hide from this guy. But he goes and starts looking for me. I stare at him, letting him know that I know he is up to something messed up. He stares back with these soulless eyes, and luckily then, my Uber showed up and I hopped in. I'm not sure if this guy has anything to do with my ex-coworker or if he was just a random psycho, but I do know that it helped me look out and it ended up saving me as I made my boyfriend meet me after work. After that, I was extremely paranoid and always on the lookout for creeps, and I made my boyfriend meet me after work if it was dark out. A few days later, after no bizarre events, my boyfriend comes and meets me when I see some car with its headlights on parked in front of a store we had to pass. We start walking by it when it slowly starts driving away, seemingly watching us walk away. We get to some lights, and I see the same car now in another plaza driving slowly and watching us. Freaked out, I tell my boyfriend, and he gets scared. I assumed it was my ex-coworker as the car this time looked like his mom's car. I saw his mom come to pick him up at work once, and she was driving a car that looked like this one. The next night, we also saw some man with a black van with a passenger door wide open hovering around it. When we passed him, he started to follow us, so we started to run a bit until we got further away. 10 minutes later, I saw some guy wearing a hoodie hiding behind some building with his back against the wall. I don't know if the last two incidents are related, but it sure terrified me and my boyfriend. Mind you, I used to walk home by myself for a month without incidents.
Did you make it to the end? I certainly hope you did. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. And I will see you next time in Morbid Whispers, House of Dreams.